Do not tell yourself, I don't really have a digital policy for my teenagers. No, I'm here to tell you, you do have a digital policy. It is entrust your children to the internet and let's see what happens. Okay.
That's right.
That's your system.
Right.
Now it stinks. Do you want to make it better or not? So when we say, yeah, we're just the more artsy kind of family, so we don't really have systems. No, that's a cop out. You have systems. They just stink. Right. And I think I'm serious. I think that's the mindset that parents have to have, families have to have. Right. You do have systems in place to pay the bills, an educational system for your kids, communication processes, it might be ignore each other until you have a big explosion. That's, you know what? Right. That's a system and it gets the results that it's designed to get.
All in this together, family, we're taking a chance. Family, like birds.
Welcome to the neighborhood. We're so glad you joined us today. It is a beautiful day.
And it is Advent, right?
It is, yeah. We are here.
Do you have your Advent candles?
We always rush around.
Yeah.
And to be honest, because of you, we always have our Advent candles together.
Because we give them away.
Because we buy them for others to give them away now.
Yes. And I've said this before, but all you moms out there, stay strong. Stay strong.
We gotcha.
I do feel like this is like the Mom Olympics, it's from Thanksgiving through New Year's. It's like we're cooking, we're decorating, we're buying gifts, we're going to performances, we're making costumes, like all of those things. You can do it, ladies. Like my life at this time of year has greatly calmed down because I don't have little ones, but that was definitely got to a fever pitch when you have kids in school and whatever, all of that. And it's a lot.
Depending on when you're listening to this, if you're listening to it right away, it's Giving Tuesday, as tomorrow is a big day for philanthropy throughout the U.S., maybe the world. But for us, we exist because of the support of donors. So we want to just invite you to join us in our mission to strengthen the family. And if you're on our email list, you're seeing those emails now. Hopefully they aren't a bother, but you're like, yeah, I've gotten some benefit from this organization and I'd like to make a donation.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like, it's like, okay, are you going to just put pocket change in, say, hey, $5, here you go? Or you're like, no, this is an important work. I love the classes, the free programs, the things you're doing.
Downloadable guides and resources.
Pizza and parenting, free guides and video series and different things. You make this all possible. You are our sponsors. You are our supporters. You are the ones we rely on. And we're able to do this work because of you.
And you all know, like, we don't have advertisements on our podcast. We don't do lots and lots of fundraising. This end of year, this is our big time that we gather vast majority of our donations that help us and sustain us, our graphic designers, our editors, all of the people who work with us throughout the entire year. And so we really, really do need everybody's help. And we have thousands of little smaller donors. That helps. But you know what especially helps is our monthly donors.
Right.
So for our monthly donors, we have, and just to tie this back into the Mom Olympics thing, we have everything you need to celebrate Advent and Christmas. So this is our little Advent book that I've put together. And I put it together because I wanted to try to get all of the traditions and feast days that we celebrate during Advent, as well as, of course,
to really bring a vibrant Catholic culture into your home.
Yes, as well as the Advent wreath ceremonies themselves, all the way through Epiphany. And so if you're the kind of person, which I'm the kind of person, that I'm like, oh yeah, Epiphany blessing. How do we do that again? Oh yeah, wait a minute. Our Lady of Guadalupe. What should we do?
What's that? Yeah,
it's all here. All here. One book. Any size donation gets this book. We'll send it to you. But if you would like to celebrate and use the Jesse tree ornaments, which we have them here, these beautiful wooden ornaments. There's, I don't know how many of them, 30 some ornaments. You get these wooden ornaments along with the book, along with Advent candles for a $99 donation. I think it's a $100 donation, whatever, $99, $100. But if you go on our website, you can see that, and that really will help, because one of the things that we want to do is to help encourage Catholic families to create a Catholic culture in their home. And so all of the gifts that we have for our donors are geared towards that. So we also have let's see,
For the
a
part of the
Christmas
Christmas
box. So we have this beautiful A is for Angel book, good for any time of year, written by listeners. Sorry.
Yeah, written by listeners, the Keglers, and it's got some beautiful classic art in it, Catholic art in it.
And then we have our friends from Catholic Crate who have provided all of these things. Oh, antiphons, liturgical art, stickers, St. Andrew's Prayer, and new and improved Yeti. Embrace
that?
your sacred calling. And this is good for anybody.
Hot, cold, awesome Yeti. I am so excited. So this is in addition to our other Yeti, which was really popular.
Yes.
And this is a new color, new branding. And
Get it for your college student. Get it for your grandparents.
embrace your sacred calling. That could apply.
Yes.
I mean, again, we're talking about you parents, but it could apply to
Absolutely.
any vocation, any state of life. So
Okay. And
that's-
actually this week, is it this week? Oh, this Sunday on December 8th.
That's right.
We are doing our family board meeting course.
Webinar.
Webinar.
Free webinar.
A free webinar. So you can go onto our website and register for that if you're interested. And actually, that is a perfect intro for this interview that we're doing with Connor
Sure
Gallagher.
is. Yes, it is.
Because his passion, father of 15 kids.
16, I think they
16
said
kids. Father of 16.
Which is
he is
crazy.
very passionate about having a well-ordered family.
Because you need to, when you have more and more kids, like we say
You
this.
have to systematize things.
Yeah, it's like we call this the messy family meets the well-ordered family, but it's not in conflict.
Not at all.
It's as you have more children, you need to create rhythms. You need
Yeah.
to create routines because you just can't do unique, specific for
Yeah.
recreate every time. You have to
Right.
just create a way to operate as a family, and that's what he has done. That's what he and his wife have done.
And if you are interested, as you listen to this podcast, if you want to implement some of the things that he talks about, come and take the webinar with us on December 8th. And we're going to talk about, well, how do you bring some of these things into your home? How do you analyze them? How do you see what do we need? How do you make priorities? So register for that free webinar. And if you do, we have a discount that we'll be giving at the webinar for our course. This is the discount for Our Lady. December 8th, Immaculate Conception, December 8th at 8 o'clock. That's when the webinar
8 at
is.
8.
And yes, in celebration of Our Lady, we'll give you a discount for our course if you register.
And did we ever say this, that the family board meeting course, which was originally in December, we're now rescheduling for January. But again, this conversation about the well-ordered family, it really fits so well with the idea of the family board meeting. And there's so many things that came out from this interview with Connor Gallagher. He is a entrepreneur on a number of different businesses.
It's fun to talk to him,
And there's so much more that we probably didn't get to. But as the owner president, I don't know what the title was, but of Tan Books, produced this really beautiful book that gives a lot of systems and program for how to maintain a well-ordered family. So maybe we could just jump into the interview and take a listen. And they all have their videos off. But welcome if you're lurking in the background. We are glad you're here. We know some of you by name, but we're not seeing your faces, but that's all right.
Yeah, that's all right.
We're okay with that.
Yeah, so this is Connor Gallagher, our guest for this evening. And so I just want to encourage all of you as we're having this conversation, if you think of questions that you want to ask Connor, we'll have time to do that at the end. You can just put them in the chat. And it's not going to distract us or anything. Please don't worry about that. So, hey, Madison. So we'll be able to put those in the chat, and then you can, then we'll go ahead and just relay those questions to him. And yeah.
All right, well, we'll begin. And again, you're welcome to have your camera on or off. We welcome it. We like to see your smiling faces as long as you're smiling and there's not too much. Well, I'll leave it there. I'll stop there. All right, let's begin with a prayer, and then we'll start into our conversation tonight. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit, amen. Dear Heavenly Father, we come before you this evening. We dedicate our time, our lives, our marriages, our families to you. We place you as King, as Lord, as Savior. And Lord, we ask you to be with us, to enlighten us, and to give us some encouragement and some tools to allow us to step more fully into this sacred vocation, into this calling you've given us to be moms and dads. Bless us all, and especially bless Connor tonight, Lord. Bless him both in what he shares, but also in the work that he's doing through this book and through TAN, and just with his all his children and grandchildren. In your name, Lord, we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Amen. Again, we're so glad you all could join us this evening. We're excited to talk about how maybe our messy families can also become a little bit well ordered. We want to go for a little bit more order in our frantic and hurried life. We met Connor at least first at Seek. We have friends in common. And Connor is the chief executive president. I forget what the title was. The head of TAN
Brand
Books,
Poobah,
Yes.
something like that of
you're right.
TAN.
And which has just been a stalwart for Catholic publishing for ages. And and you've been in other businesses as well. But your real claim to fame is that you are the father of 16, and that is possibly the most amazing credential you could ever carry. So
So welcome.
Connor, thanks for coming.
Thanks for having me. In fact, I'm sorry, but I got to correct something, guys. You got something really wrong. And that's my claim to fame as being the husband of Ashley Gallagher. That
Yes.
is
Nice.
Good call.
telling
Yeah.
you what.
Yes, nice. Very good. Because
If she wasn't nursing a baby right now, she should be the one on the microphone. But I'm the talking head. I'm always the
Right.
one going around the country talking about how to run a family, and she's actually doing it. So, that's what's going on right now. So
That's beautiful.
Yeah, because you know what? Someday, eventually, the children will be gone, and hopefully, you will have many years together.
yeah.
Well, and actually, that's really actually good. How long have you been married again?
20, 23, 24 years, somewhere around there.
That's a beautiful thing in this day and age. That is so countercultural. Now, because that is where it all begins. That's where it starts. So
when you guys were dating, did you talk about? Do people ask you this all the time? Like, did you talk about how many kids you wanted to have? Like, did you ever think, oh yeah, we'll just have 1 million children? Or were you? What was that conversation like?
Well, okay, it's two funny things about that. First, when I was in high school, this was in the days of like handheld cameras,
Yes.
and my buddies and I like went to the beach, and we decided to do like a day in the life of these stupid teenage guys. And so we filmed everything, which my mother found years later. Thankfully, there was nothing too humiliating on it. But on that camera, I said to a bunch of girls at the beach that we were like interviewing, I said, hey, I'm either going to be a Catholic priest or a father of like 10 kids. It's on camera. It's on camera. I said this is 16 years old. So, and I was from a family of 6, and that was the largest in like all of North Carolina. And we were freaks because my parents had 6 kids. So 10, I thought was just, I was saying something hyperbolous,
yes. It's beyond all reason.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. So, I didn't even know that was biologically possible. Right. So, but then, my wife, when she became a Catholic at 17 years old, she had, she convert, was not raised Catholic, didn't really go to church at all growing up. Her uncle converted and became a priest, and she went to his ordination, and she just fell in love with the beauty of the first Catholic mass she ever went into. So, then she went through RCIA at 16. She converted at 17, and then very, very early on, even before we got married, she's on the record for saying to somebody, yeah, if I got married at this age and had kids X amount of every X amount of years, I could end up, say, 16 kids. She said 16.
No way.
She got 16. No joke. So now again, she's, she's still got a few years to go. So I think she's might even beat her own record. But I would always say, like, this is not like, it's not a race. It's not a contest.
Yeah.
We take one kid at a time. I always said that till we had twins. I'm like, all right, God, very funny. Take them one at a time.
What numbers are the twins?
They're 11 and 12.
11 and 12.
Woo.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh, that is funny.
So, but they're awesome. They're awesome. But I mean, so they're 7. They're talk about messy family. They're a total mess. I mean, they're a
Yeah.
total mess. And I was kind of indicating you guys before we started rolling about how messy even a family rosary could be, which it was right before I got on this show. But it's the twins. They're always a mess. So yeah, but no, it's not a race. I tell parents, if you got one kid or you got 16, you're a full-time parent. And so,
Yeah, that's so true.
and in fact, I relate everything in family to business. Okay. That's just the way my brain works. And if you're a solo entrepreneur and let's say you got one employee, it's so hard. Like you can't hardly delegate anything. You're supervising everything. You're involved in every single part of the business. It's exhausting. It's actually after you get a critical mass and you've hired in other executives
The
to really
economies
take
of
some of the
scale,
load.
man.
The economies of scale are real. And so I look at families that have 3, 4, 5 kids under the age of 6, 7, 8, and I'm like, guys, you got a big problem for a couple more years, and then it gets better. I promise.
Right.
When the oldest is 12 or 13 and they can start babysitting, you and your spouse can actually go out to dinner again like human beings.
Right.
And then when one of them reaches 16, you're in the promised land because you don't have to go out to Family Dollar to get milk. You can send the 16-year-old. So,
Right.
but then you have to worry about them getting in wrecks and you have to pay for car insurance and blah, blah, blah. So a whole nother
Big kids,
layer
big problems.
of stress
Small kids, little
happens,
problems.
but really, I mean, I guess I'm just saying having 16 kids is not the most stressful I've ever had, and nor what has my wife had. It is a lot easier today than it was when we had a whole bunch of little kids and we were totally outnumbered.
Yeah.
That's really, really
That was
good to
actually
hear.
one of the things that I wanted to ask that I would love people to hear is that what season of your life, like as you look back, what was the most difficult time, do you think?
Like
I mean, I
season
can,
with
I
the
can
kids.
predict, but why don't you?
I want to
wondering what you
compare
think.
our challenge to yours. Let's go.
I think I would have a different answer than my wife, but as time went on, this was important for me to learn, but painful. So when I was I was studying, getting my master's in philosophy, my law degree, and we had one kid. We moved up to DC. We had no family, no friends, and she moves into an apartment, and I go to school all day like a job. I'm working part-time, and I'm doing 2 graduate degrees. And I have to get in the car, drive to the metro stop, get on a train, switch trains, and then walk. I'm an hour and a half away from my new wife that has a baby, stuck in an apartment with no friends or family. And by the way, no money, right? No
Yeah.
money,
Right.
0. So if you have no friends and you have no family, if you have money, it's not so bad. But if you're totally broke and have no friends or family, it's lonely, real lonely, right?
Okay.
So, and I did not appreciate how hard those 3 years were for her. And she had another baby, and I think she was having the 4th baby when I graduated. That was the hardest time for her. And me being an idiot and oblivious because I was so consumed in my education and I had my social group at school and I had my job. I was clueless, guys, clueless about how lonely this little lady was. And I don't think I got it. It did not get through my dense skull for another 15 years or so. So that was the hardest for her. But then when we moved back into near the Charlotte area, then she got, more family and friends around her. I think things got easier for her. My hardest time is associated when I took over TAN, which was bankrupt. I acquired it with my father out of bankruptcy, and it was broken. And we had, this was 17 years ago. So I can't tell you we had a number of little kids, 3 or 4, 5 little kids.
I lose count too. I understand.
Yeah, I don't know, but probably 5 or 6 little kids. And so I still don't have an old enough one to really help out. Ashley's still overwhelmed, and I have the pressure of a wife and kids who need me because she's homeschooling. It's hard. She's got 5 or 6 little kids, and I have a totally and completely bankrupt company that is not working, that has no money, that we've just had to I'm commuting back and forth to Rockford, Illinois from Charlotte, North Carolina, living basically every week in a different state.
Yeah.
And my wife's doing all this stuff at home. I think that was the hardest part for me.
Yeah.
And so,
But that was
when
kind
your
of a similar
careers,
period, a similar time period. It was when all of your kids were little. I mean, both of those times. Because I was thinking is that, and that what's sad is that so many people in the world today, people who don't see children as a gift from God, they have 2 or 3 kids, and they see how hard it is, and then they just say, "Oh, that's it. I don't want to have any more kids after this." But I kind of feel like, oh, you don't understand. This is after this, it gets so much better,
yeah, it does.
It really, really does. And you're giving them the gift of each other, which I don't think a lot of people appreciate. I'm the second oldest of 10 children myself. And so I have 10 children, but it's also, so I kind of see it from both perspectives of seeing the gift that it is for me to have so many siblings, but then really wanting to give that to my kids, and just really being intentional about that.
Yeah, absolutely. They give up too early. And that's why I tell them, hey, like, I actually think it's helpful to tell people you're actually in the hardest part right now. And it's
Exactly.
going to get easier. I don't play around with them. I kind of usually, when all else fails in life, try the truth. And it's the truth,
Yes.
Right.
You're in the hardest part. You don't have any big kids. It's going to get easier, but you got to persevere.
Yeah.
So, go ahead.
No, I was simply just thinking about the time for me that I quickly go back to is when we were outnumbered. We were outnumbered with 3 little kids, and I felt like going from 1 kid to 3 kids. Those were big movements. But then after that, it actually got easier as the kids got older, and it took a little bit of time, but 4 wasn't nearly as challenging because they say, what is it? 25% of your brain is reduced every time you have another child. So by that 4th child, I was feeling great. I didn't know what was going on, but you move past it, and it does force you to look at the world very differently, right?
Yeah.
When you have more kids.
Well,
'Cause there are things you have to do.
Well, that's a great statistic about losing 25% of your brain per child. I've experienced that. I can, I love statistics. So I always told my kids that every 5th child born in the world is Chinese. So the 5th is going to be.
So you're just waiting
And then
for
we
that
should
one.
we should have three Chinese kids by now. We still don't. It's incredible. Like, we're totally defying the odds,
This is it. You guys are outliers. You're just breaking the mold.
So I have to ask though, as you look, because I know like for our kids, there were some kids that before they were born, we were just like, oh yeah, just have another kid. It was easy. It was, great, wonderful, joyful, amazing. But amidst like all of our 10, there was 2 or 3 times when I got pregnant that just felt really overwhelming. The 3rd child felt really overwhelming. And then there was another time in our life that I was very overwhelmed. I'm just wondering, were all of your kids like surprises, expecting? Do you ever have that experience of feeling like, obviously it all works out in the end, like God blesses you, God gives you what you need. But I just wonder if you could, do you ever feel that way?
Well, when you're not doing anything to prevent pregnancy, to say you're surprised, it's kind of dumb. So I can't really say, oh,
Like this
surprise.
what happens.
Whoa, how'd that happen? I don't know. So no, I think we've been pretty careful to assess my wife's health, physical health, spiritual, emotional health all along.
Sure.
I make plenty of money now, but in the early days, we never wanted to use finances as an excuse. And I think people use that as an excuse way too quickly.
Yes.
And I think that's a real tragedy. And I think people overuse NFP for the purpose of having a lifestyle that they desire. And I don't think that's in keeping with the church teaching at all.
Right.
But sorry, that's beyond the scope of your question. But
Oh, no, that's okay. We have a whole podcast on that too.
yeah, that's my, people disagree about it, but I see people using NFP way too loosely. But my point is that we've always been careful. This is not a race. It's not more moral to have more kids. I don't like that kind of mindset. And so every time we assess my wife's health, and we have delayed on occasion because we're saying, okay, look, she's beat up. She needs to recover a little bit. So we have been intentional about that, and you need to do it. And you need to be careful, especially after miscarriages. I think that's when we've really had to be more careful. Is she's had 4 miscarriages. One of them were twins. So that's 5 5 miscarriages
Wow.
technically.
Wow.
Mhm.
And you just have to take inventory of everything going on with her,
Right.
Right.
particularly.
Right.
So
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. To switch topics here just slightly, or kind of get to the book here. When
yeah.
we're talking to a lot of families, they are feeling that pinch of being overwhelmed, of being stretched thin, of feeling frantic, right? There's all these things that happen.
Yeah.
And so I don't know if that was, well, let me start with this. What prompted you to write a book called The Well-Ordered Family? What prompted you to try to aspire to be a little bit more
To be
ordered?
a well-ordered family. That's actually a
I
good
mean,
question.
because and not just to write the book, but to develop maybe from the very, the
Right.
genesis of the book. I mean, so forget the book for a second, because that's writing something down, right? You lived the
Yeah.
adventure, right? Where were you at? Because I think there's a lot of people struggling. Maybe you can speak into that. Where were you at when you started developing some systems, developing a way of approaching family life differently than maybe what you were at that point?
So as my businesses were getting more successful and a little bit more organized and ordered, and I had really studied the nature of business, and I found, as a philosopher at heart, I used to teach Catholic at a Catholic college, philosophy, and I love philosophy. I was a lawyer by necessity, but a philosopher by love. And I found that there was what I call natural law principles in business. So I kind of really went at the
Mm,
study of business. Again, I took over 10, it was bankrupt. I went out and devoured every business book worth its salt, searching for the natural law of business. I was convinced that there were principles that God instilled into the universe that control whether you succeed or not at business. Okay. And so
mhm,
I was searching for that. And I found certain key principles that I said, okay, this applies to every business, every culture, every time. And so I kind of began really running my business off those things. So I came up with something that I called a master plan, which is a 1-page summary for the entire business's vision and mission and core values and those kinds of things. And I learned that you have to have a certain unity or alignment in the business, and you have to have systems and metrics, certain key things to measure. Like, I learned these basic principles. And as I really approached it like a philosopher. Well, one day I went home and I saw my wife basically yelling at all the kids about what chores to do. Hey, you do the dishes, you do the sweep the floors, clean up the living room. And I remember thinking, this is totally random, because she did the same thing last night and the night before and the night before and the night before. And so I said, honey, I can't go into my office and just tell everybody random stuff to do. Hey, you pay the bills. Hey, you pack the box. Hey, you build a website. I can't do that. So I started saying, honey, we need a little bit more like order and clarity in this. And she's like, all right, Mr. Business, why don't you tell me how to do it then? So I did. And I said, okay, look, by golly, let me do it. And so then all of a sudden, I brought home a big whiteboard, my sticky notes, markers, little tools I use at the office for doing project management. And I said, all right, we are going to business up this place. We are going to make the world's greatest chore chart, and we're going to figure out how to run this thing smoothly. And so that's what I did. And actually, the thing that I liked about it was my wife got to see me in my zone.
mm,
And because I'm like the man at work, people see me on my best behavior, I'm on my A game. And then I go home and I'm kind of dumb loser, oldest of the children waiting to be told what to do. So, it's sort of like, okay, how do I take some of the stuff I know at business and bring it home? And everyone that works out there in the world operates within systems and organizations. And you don't have to be the CEO, but you operate within project management. You have teamwork, collaborate with other people. You have deadlines. You have responsible parties. You got big organizational charts. You have things. No matter what business, you probably have those things. So I wanted to kind of like show off a little bit to my lady, saying, "Hey, look, I'm actually pretty good at stuff. That's where the checks come from. I'm actually good at things." So I did it with the chore chart. That was the first thing. And we hung it up on the wall. A lot of people everyone has chore charts, but I thought mine was outstanding. It was just a normal chore chart, nothing fancy about it. But that's when I said to myself, guys, I said, what else can I do this with? What
Right.
other business principles apply? And then I said, hey, a SWOT analysis, strength, weaknesses, opportunity, threats. It's like the most basic business analysis. I do it every quarter, every year at our strategic planning sessions for my business. Why don't I do that at home? And so I started bringing those things home, slowly started having family meetings, came up with a vision statement for our family, came up with a one-page master plan. And that was about 5 years ago, maybe 5 or 6 years ago, when I really started getting the documents going that I used at the office. I started using it for the house.
Mhm.
And then I said to myself, one day I'm going to turn this into a book. And then I took a 2-week vacation and wrote the book. And that
Right.
was, 6 months ago or something like that.
That's great.
So in the families that are like listening to this, say they don't have a personality that's a organized personality,
Yeah.
like say they have 5 kids and maybe they're just more of a sanguine, and
Yep.
maybe they're just more like, or more phlegmatic. Hey, I just want everybody to be happy. I don't like ordering my kids around or, whatever. What would you say to those people about like, where should they start in the 6 different parts of the well-ordered family? Like where would be a good place for them to start?
Yeah, I hear you, but I'm going to kind of slightly answer a different question and then promise I'll answer that one.
Sure.
First thing, the real first place they need to start, okay, is in their brain. And let me tell you what I mean. So this is if you don't get anything else from like listening to me here, folks, like this is the thing. A guy named W. Edward Deming. Does that name ring a bell? He's the one that really produced Toyota in the way that Toyota is. Like Toyota is a super duper, great
Mhm.
car. There's a reason, right? And he said, you have a system for everything, whether you realize it or not.
Okay.
And every system produces the results it produces precisely because of the way it was designed. I mean, I'm butchering his quote, but it's actually all in my book. I could just look it up. It's right here. But it's this. When I realized that, this is a game-changing concept. Parents, you have a financial system for your home. You might not realize it. Your system might be spend money and see what happens.
Right.
Well,
Mhm.
guess what? That's a system and it sucks. So let's improve on that. Do
Right.
not tell yourself, I don't really have a digital policy for my teenagers. No, I'm here to tell you, you do have a digital policy. It is entrust your children to the internet and let's see what happens. Okay.
That's right.
That's your system.
Right.
Now it stinks. Do you want to make it better or not? So when we say, yeah, we're just the more artsy kind of family, so we don't really have systems. No, that's a cop out. You have systems. They just stink. Right. And I think I'm serious. I think that's the mindset that
Mhm.
parents have to have, families have to have.
Right.
You do have systems in place to pay the bills, an educational system for your kids, communication processes. It might be
Mhm.
ignore each other until you have a big explosion. That's, what?
Right.
That's a system and it gets the results that it's
Right.
designed to get. Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Right.
And so in an automobile manufacturing company, they realized that there's a system for everything. Everything even if you haven't documented, if there's an error that spits out of the end of the assembly line, it's because of a bad system somewhere along the line. Now, the analogy only goes so far. Your kids are not a truck coming
Right.
out of the assembly line.
If only it was
But-
that easy, right?
Yeah, if only it was that easy. But I really want parents to understand you have a system for laundry, for yard
Mhm.
work, for financial retirement, for the internet, for gaming, for technology, for
Right.
education, for tithing. You have for communicating with your teenagers, with your toddlers, with each other. You have a system for managing the social relationships with friends out there, with your teenage friends. You have a system for everything.
Right.
If it stinks, then let's make an improvement, but do not allow yourself to lie and say, I don't have a system for this.
Yeah.
So that's
And-
the first thing. Okay.
Yeah.
And
So I
now
just one little thing about
Before you go
thing
off,
about
please,
that is that how we would say it is
We
it's
define it.
just living intentionally, because a lot of times people are like in that gerbil wheel, and they are just kind of like you just said, they have these systems that aren't working And they never stop to recognize that they have a system and analyze it and say, how is this working for us? Like, and really take time to assess it. Sorry, is that what you're going to say or something else?
No. But before you get, just so you're not forgetting your point, right? Because I think the systems are a big deal in that the what we call the operating system of the family is family culture, right? And it's made up of how are the chores getting done? What is communication looking like? What is technology?
all
It's
those
kind of like the
things.
macro or the sum of your systems is your family culture, at least as we see it, because that's how you're forming your kids. You're using all these things that you're talking about are not only making your job easier or efficient or effective, it's actually forming our kids in this whole process
communicating
too,
to
right?
them.
And it's communicating something very powerful. And it also helps you actually step into your role more fully. So I love it. It's just beautiful.
No, I love it. So I love that. I agree with all of it. Now, to answer your question precisely, which is where do you start? If you're
Right.
artsy fartsy, if you're not really super organized, like kind of where do you start, right?
Yeah,
And I would say
yeah.
so you can see why I first gave that mindset. Okay. Is
Sure.
that I want that mindset. But then secondly, I would say all parents, if you have middle school or teenagers, I tell you where to start. And it's different than if you have like a toddler. You must start with the digital policy because
Yes.
there's just demonic activity attacking your children.
Yeah.
So you can go to welderfamily.com, download my digital policy for free. And you need to use this thing. We have a quarterly family meeting every quarter, every 90 days. We had one yesterday. It's been scheduled for 90 days. And we redid our digital policy. Okay. I mean, we're always changing it. So we could talk about that more or less or whatever. But the point is there is an urgency. There's things that are important and there's things that are urgent. So like a beautiful vision statement that I can help you craft, finding out your family core virtues, painting your 10-year portrait, 3-year goals. That's all very, very important, but it might not be totally urgent. Okay. Getting the dishes done tonight is urgent. At least it is in my house. Otherwise, you ain't going to eat breakfast. But there's certain things that are urgent and important, and that's the technology. So
Yes.
do it today.
Yeah. That was actually one of the things that I had written down.
That's how I
was the
answer
tech
your
policy. No, but that is so important. That was actually one of the things that I was going to ask you about, because that was the first thing that caught my eye. And it's literally one of our most often asked questions when we talk about parenting is, how do you handle technology? Because I agree with you. There are forces at work that are after our children, that are absolutely after our children all the
They want
time.
to deform them.
Yeah. And it would be so nice to just be like, no technology at all. But the thing is that your kids, when they leave your house, they are going to be combating technology in the world. And we have to train them. You have to train them just like you have to train them how to drive. You have to train them about relationships. Like, we have to train them on technology. How did you come up with your policy? How did you come up with this
I'm
worksheet
not
that you have?
I'm not Amish, so like as soon as I get off this call, I'm going to watch the World Series. Okay. So I mean, I'm going to be in front of technology, and then the commercials are going to really piss me off, with my kids because they're going to be improper. At least they don't have cheerleaders in baseball. Okay. So whatever.
Right, there you go.
But
And you can mute the commercials.
one day they
so.
will. And they'll probably be transgender cheerleaders or something crazy like that. The LA Dodgers and the New York Yankees. Anyway, sorry. So actually, can I tell you, I'm a huge baseball fan. I was raised to despise the New York Yankees. Okay. But it is a crazy universe when Connor Gallagher wants the Yankees to win the World Series because they're against the Dodgers. And I always liked the Dodgers until a year or two ago when they had those transgender demonic nuns that like this whole big thing in the news, like come and dance around. And I can't go for the Dodgers. I can't do it. I can't do it. And so whatever that, you know what I'm talking about. They were all in the news.
Yes. Oh, no, of course. I know exactly what you're talking about. Yes. Yes.
This is the reason for me going for the Yankees is like me voting for Kamala Harris. I mean, it's so weird.
I doubt it's the same thing.
How is this happening? But it is happening.
So
anyway,
is someone going to clip this now and say that Connor Gallagher is voting?
It's just the universe is messed up. It's a messy universe, not just a messy family.
But that goes back to the technology, though,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
all
Yeah,
of
it
this
does.
is coming at us because, and if that didn't exist, we wouldn't know about it, but they wouldn't be pushing it so hard.
Yeah.
They
Yeah,
know they
exactly.
can
So-
influence our kids because of that.
Yeah. So what my digital policy does is it answers basic questions. When you're trying to get control of any situation, whether it's your digital marketing techniques at work, your finances, your accounting, an employment issue with a personnel, like whatever it is in life, it's just basic problem solving. You have to ask certain questions. What, who, where, when, okay? And the highest level of discernment is why, right? Why? So on my digital policy, the first question is what's working? I mean, I wish I could just like pull it up and share my screen, but I won't do it. But the first question, by the way, all I do, I'm not telling anybody here or anyone else, any of my customers, any of my listeners, what their policy should be. I'm not here to do that. I'm not going to tell you what your policy should be, but I am going to tell you have to ask certain questions.
Exactly.
And,
Very
that's
good.
I'm just a question guy. I'm like Socrates. That's all I want to do is ask you questions. And if you're a good, basic, common sense human being, your policy is going to be a little different than mine. And that's okay. Okay. So it perfects the aim and the good here. So what's the current state? Anytime you're doing project management, what's the current state? Right. And so I look at the current state and say, what in our policy? And again, we did this yesterday. I promise, practice what we preach. I should have brought it. It's in my house. I'm in my home office, which is a shed outside of my house. It's an amazing shed. My 17-year-old built me in a full functioning office. It's like a small house. It's like a mini, it's like what do they call them? The mini house, whatever, tiny house.
Yeah,
it's like that.
Tiny house.
Yeah, like that. So, but my policy's in there hanging on the wall. But what's working? Okay. What's not working? Okay. You have to answer those two questions. All right. And then I say, why? What's the purpose? And I explain to my kids, we go through it. The primary purpose, guys, of this digital policy is to keep you pure. I mean, this is about chastity, purity. This is really what it is. Secondarily, it's like, don't be addicted to like any, Netflix show. Go read a book. Okay. Books are good. They exist. This good.
Right.
But mostly it's like, I want to keep my kids pure, particularly my sons. I mean, I really, nothing against the girls. I'm just saying guys are more vulnerable. So,
Sure.
So this is it. I'm very clear. This is why we're doing it. And the barbarians are at the gates and they're like trying to climb over and they're trying to climb under and they're trying to break through the windows. It's just so, and then you say, okay, what content's permitted? So on my sheet, what is permitted? So what content is prohibited? Okay. And what I mean by that is like, what age, and I have to draw a lot of distinctions because I got teenagers all the way down to little kids. So it's different, right?
Sure.
And so can they watch all movies and TV shows have to be approved in my house. Okay. And so they know the kind of things that they're allowed to watch, not, but I have to usually look up this, hey, can I watch this movie? And I have to go to commonsensemedia.com or unplug it and check it out. You know the drill, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
And so
Unplugged,
yesterday in our
Common Sense.
meeting, the kids asked me and I said, okay, look, we're doubling down on this. You have to come ask me. And my wife said, no, Connor, they have to come ask me. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And she said, you rely on your memory, right, Connor? Like you need to rely on me to do the research because I'll have seen a movie when I was like 12 and in my head, it was perfectly harmless.
Yes.
And then
Not
I
so
said,
harmless
oh, it's
anymore.
a great movie.
Yes.
Dumb and Dumber's hilarious. Go watch it. And
No,
then,
we've had that
and then I'm
happen.
watching
We've
it with
had-
my kids. I'm like, what did I tell them to do?
I
Oh my
know.
gosh.
I know.
I mean, the Goonies. Who would have ever thought the
I
Goonies were
know.
perverted?
I know.
Who would've
Vid
ever
Angel,
thought-
baby. Vid Angel.
Oh,
Here we go.
so it's it's a great that's a great thing. So my point is, my wife's like, no, come ask me. I'm like, you're probably right because I'm like, oh, that's a great movie, and just I'm not careful enough. And my wife is like, she looks up everything. So anyway, so that's part of
That's
the
actually really good.
policy.
You
And then-
divide up the labor, though. I mean, seriously,
That's
the
right.
roles.
Hey,
and
I got rid
that's
of something.
important.
I delegated. That's awesome. So no, but then the next question is where. So in my house, different from your house, but in my house, absolutely no internet, with two exceptions, in the bedroom. Okay, ever. And we've had to change that. Like it used to be like keep the door open, and now I'm just like forget this.
Yeah.
No internet in the bedroom. Period. Except for doing school because they have to log in on some things for school. And for like guitar lessons, they use YouTube for like guitar lessons. And we have security measures on their devices. Okay. But that's a constant battle. That's a whole nother thing. So, but you have to ask, where can they, Where can they text? Okay. Can they
Right.
text their friends in their room? Yes, I let my teenagers do that.
Mhm.
But they can't use the internet. They cannot
Right.
be FaceTiming or anything like that.
Right.
Um, and then, actually when you deal with a digital policy, it actually invokes bedtime issues. Like when do they have to turn the TV off and go to bed? So like even bedtime stuff,
Totally.
even for my 17-year-old, like I'm like, son, I know you're 17, but I don't want you sitting up and watching, anything at 11 o'clock at night.
Garbage.
Go to
Yeah.
bed.
Right.
Beds are good.
Exactly.
So,
Exactly.
so anyway, where, and then with who can you communicate with?
Mhm.
And for families that like are big into gaming, like we don't do any gaming, but for families that are, you got to be real careful about who your kids are playing games with. Like some dude in India,
Yes.
who's
Yes.
pretending to
Yes.
be a
Yes. Yes.
16-year-old kid and he's like some 60-year-old creep. I mean,
Yeah.
it's just weird. It's a different world. So
Right.
what is permitted? Where is it permitted? When is it permitted?
Mhm.
With whom is it permitted? You have to ask these basic questions. My tool will help you do that. That's a
Right.
long-winded answer, but that's what you got. You got to do it. You have to do
Yes.
it.
No, that
that's
is
huge.
actually-
And because we started asking, where do you start? And with preteen and teens, you're like urgency, get your
Yeah.
tech policy.
Right.
If you've got toddlers, if you've got a lot of kids who are under the age of 10, let's
They're just
say,
starting
right?
out. Like where would you start
where
with?
would you where would you recommend? So families trying to say, okay, I get it. I know that I've got some challenges. Where do I start? Where do I build?
Yeah, I think if they're little guys, I think starting with vision, the first part of the whole system is vision. I think that's a wonderful time where mom and dad still can kind of think long term about like, what are we trying to build here? You're still in the early days. You're in the entrepreneurial stage. By the way, entrepreneurs, listen, you build a business, you start from scratch, you're founders of an organization. Well, guess what? Mom and dad are founders of an organization called your family, right? And
That's
so
right.
and a business is people together coming together to try to accomplish a certain goal, usually for profit, usually for distribution of goods, selling
Mhm.
products or services. A family is people coming together to try to accomplish a certain goal.
Yeah.
It's the rules that apply to business apply pretty darn well to family life. And so starting with vision, imagine that you and your spouse come together right out of college and try to form a coffee shop and you just start making coffee. Well, no, there's a lot more to it than that. What's our 10-year picture? Where do we want to be in 10 years? I was interviewing a guy today, nice guy. He's 35. I had a lot of respect for him. But I said, where do you see yourself in 3 years? And it was like, blah, 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 blah. He had no idea. I'm like, dude, you need
Mhm.
vision. You need some vision,
Yeah.
right? You're married,
Yeah.
you got a kid on the way, you're 35, you don't know what's happening. So
Mhm.
like this is lacking. And so if you were running a business, you would sit down and ask certain questions about where are we in 10 years? Where are we in 3 years? What are our 3-year goals? Like where do we
Mhm.
really want to be in 3 years along to our big long-term goal?
Mhm.
What are our core values? Like what are these certain attributes that we really want to operate our business with, right?
Mhm.
And so that all goes on my family master plan. What's your family slogan? Like a family motto, right? I mean, a
Mhm.
business has like a little slogan. What's yours?
Yeah.
A patron. Where's your family patron? Right? There's all
Mhm.
kinds of things like this that I think gets your mind set around what you're trying to accomplish. So with
Mhm.
little kids, and by the way, little kids, you still have to pay attention to screen time because kids just are like, getting
Yeah.
autism by looking at lights too, long.
Mhm.
But whatever, they just sit in the stupid TV all day long, and it's just too much. My point though is that you're still young enough. You can really kind of take some time and work on your family's vision versus just working in. Right, you're working in, you're doing dishes, you're 99.999% of our time is in the family, but you got to work
Mhm.
on the family. And
Right.
vision is a really great way to do that. So little kids, I'd say start
Mhm.
with vision. Big kids,
Beautiful.
Mhm.
start with tech.
That's
So
great.
I'm just want to look at those in between the little kids and the teenagers when
Yeah.
you have those elementary age kids, of which
Yeah.
you have a bunch. You have a bunch probably in every age category. But one of the things that we hear a lot from parents is about kids' activities and
Yeah.
balancing getting kids that people will say, oh, we're so busy. It's so hard for us to have dinner together because we have kids going, in every which way. We have kids going all over the place. What kind of advice would you give to parents about discerning kids' activities, or what have you guys done to figure out who's going to do what and still have your family time?
Yeah, people don't like my answer on this. My answer is
That's all right. Be controversial. It's great.
yeah, my answer is take ownership of this. Stop complaining. You're becoming a victim of your circumstances. What you got? You got 4 kids in sports. You don't have time to sit down and have family dinner. What, you want to blame the little league coach? You want to blame the algebra teacher that gave too much homework? You want to blame the band director or the ballet instructor because your kids got too many activities?
Mhm.
Come on, man up here. Look, this is my point. Parents have become victims. They are playing the role of victims for the
Mhm.
world. Like they're saying, oh, there's just so much to do. We can't even have family dinner. I was talking to a guy, again, a lot of respect
Mhm.
for him. I was on his podcast, and he said, literally, my wife and I were looking and trying to find a date night, and we could not find a single night available for the next 35 nights. And it was like, oh, you want me to say, oh, I feel so sorry for you. No, look, this is your life.
Exactly.
No one's going to do this for you.
Right.
Okay. You have to be the architect of your life. Now, what do architects do? Architects look at their natural environment. Are they building a house on the beach, in the mountains, in the desert? They have to look at the
Mhm.
raw materials. They have to say, we have to build this kind of thing, given our facts and circumstances, given the budget. An architect can't say, oh, well, I can't build a house because, they only have $1 million to give me. I have to only have $10 million. No, you have a certain constraint of finances, of time,
Right.
of resources, and you have to build a beautiful house with that. Okay. The world is crazy. We get it. It's busy. There's a lot of kids' activities. You have to be the architect and take control of that
Mhm.
family, right? So
Yeah.
you have to
Extreme
build
ownership.
take ownership, extreme ownership, and it hurts. So, at a certain point in our family life, when I had, I think, 5 kids on 4 different baseball teams, and we're going out of our minds, and we were slipping into this victimization, like, we're doing everything for the kids. We can barely have family dinner, blah, blah, blah. Because every single night we're gone. And well, he's got to do travel baseball because he's got a real future in this. And it's this silliness that parents get sucked into.
Right.
And I'm busy at work and all this stuff. And so, and by the way, I told my wife one night when we literally couldn't figure out how to get our kid to a baseball game. It was like we didn't have enough drivers. I couldn't find
Yeah.
a carpool or anything. And I told my wife, I said, you know what? Put the kid in an Uber. And she's like, you're crazy. And I said, you're right. She's like, that is not safe. I said, you're right. You're right. That is not safe. Give him my gun, then put him in the Uber. Okay? No, it was like, no, but it was showing this is crazy. And so we
Yeah.
had to take some very serious inventory of ourselves and say, why are we on 4 baseball teams at one time? Right.
Yeah.
And not just that, but all the other activities. And so we had to say, we are painting this picture. We are the architects of this family. And so we decided we're going to push sports back a little later. Now that is like, every dad hates hearing that, but you have to start pushing the sports a little later. That's what we did.
Yeah.
The first few
Yeah.
kids, we could do it, but then it gets out of control. You have 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 kids. It gets out of control. So
Right.
now our kids play sports a little later in
Mhm.
life, which is great. And we have family dinner whenever we want to. It's still busy,
Yeah.
but we have so much better control over
Mhm.
our life. My point is this: you cannot blame the world for making you busy. Stop
Right.
lying to yourself. You are not a victim.
Mhm.
You are the conductor of this orchestra. You choose the pace. You
Mhm.
choose how loud, how soft it is. You get to choose the instruments that are playing. This
Right.
is you, no one else.
Yeah.
And the thing is, what's actually really beautiful is that in some ways, no matter how many kids you have, waiting until later and prioritizing family time, even if you have 2 kids, is still a good thing. It's just that you and we had to do that because we had just out of necessity. But I honestly think there's something to be said that that's good for every kid,
Regardless of the size. of
yeah,
family.
to have more time to play and all of that. And then because there is something that is really important, especially for teenagers, about organized athletics. I think especially boys, they just like flourish, like just in getting used to their bodies and all of that. But for a 5 or 6-year-old, you got to prioritize, you know?
And I think that's what it comes down to, right? It's about prioritizing. It's looking and saying, what's more important? Is having family dinner important to you?
Right.
Then build a wall around it, protect it,
Right.
safeguard it, build it up, strengthen it. We get it. Everybody wants to feel like they're keeping up with the Joneses. They don't realize it. They get sucked into it and think, oh, I'm doing this because this is what they say. They say that our kids need to be out in these activities. Time out. Do
Yeah,
what's right
that's what I mean.
for
Just
that kid.
don't be the victim. Don't be the
Yeah.
victim. And I just see
Yeah.
parents doing it. Gosh, we're just so busy. No, you made yourself this way, and you can
Yeah.
undo it.
Yeah.
And one thing I tell parents is, do you realize that tomorrow you could sell everything you own and move out to Wyoming and live off the grid? You could do that. You could do it. Now, you
Right.
might not want to do it, but like the fact that that's within your power, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Like
Yeah.
you could live an
Yes.
Amish lifestyle. You really could. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, short of that, I think you can handle travel soccer. Okay. I think you can get control of that.
Yeah.
Right,
You know, and I'm
right.
not telling you that you kids can't do travel soccer. But what I'm telling you is that the amount of time and energy and effort that your family is spending on whatever it's spending.
Yeah.
This is like a business owner blaming the economy. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
You have to take ownership
Adapt.
of this.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know,
Yes.
you have to take ownership of this. I think it's very important. And I think it helps particularly dads like kick it into high gear and say, okay, I got to take some ownership of this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and also I think that the two are related, meaning the systems and bringing that kind of order to your home. Meaning, oftentimes the urgent becomes more and more urgent and a problem and a crisis when we don't have a system. Meaning, if I don't have a system that gives me some frame of reference to say these are the activities that we as a family can handle, and we always adjust and do what. If we don't have that system in place that helps us figure out how can we do this, because when I had one kid, it was a very short period, but we could do almost anything, right?
Yeah.
You know, we could,
Yeah.
but then it requires you to create these systems, right? There's a necessity that brings in a life that gives us a better way to stand up and say, okay, you know what? We want to make sure we're protecting family dinner. We're making sure that we're protecting our kids, purity of mind and heart, that we're spending time on formation and fun and prayer. And then the other things fill in after that. If we don't have those big rocks, those big elements in our family first, though, it quickly gets crowded out. And when you're just living day to day, when you said like working in the family as opposed to working on the family,
Yeah.
that's probably the most crucial moment. You got to say time out. And again, we do something called the family board meeting where we try to say time out, take a retreat from what you're doing strategically.
To talk about these important
Yeah,
questions that
to
you
say,
brought
where
up.
are we going?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we do
Yeah,
have,
so-
go ahead. I have
sorry.
one more question for you because I know we
Yeah,
have to let
sorry.
you go soon.
No,
I know there's like so much to talk about, right?
I don't like either of the teams in the World Series.
So, one of our listeners had asked, "Have you read Habits of the Household by Jason Erdley? And did that lead you to write the book because it's not from a Catholic foundation? Have you heard of that book, Habits of the Household?"
Yeah, I've heard of it only after the fact. I promise. I wrote my whole thing, and then as I was like distributing my book, people started sending me this, and I'm like, oh, okay. So I
Okay.
haven't looked at it. I've only seen it online. I saw
Okay.
a few of the guys like Instagram posts and
Mhm.
whatnot. Looks pretty good, you know.
Mhm.
But here's the thing. It's like Welder family, I promote this to Protestants as much as Catholics. I mean, I'm the tan guy, right? So I mean, I think I got my Catholic badge. Given that I spend the vast majority of my time with stigmatists or Eucharistic miracles or incorruptibles. Okay, I passed
Yes.
the Catholic test. But these are natural law principles of family management, right? And so it applies to any family. However, the examples that I provide, okay, that fit into a broader template, the examples I provide are Catholic, and I wasn't going to hide my Catholic faith. So, for example,
Yeah.
if I'm talking about a family scorecard, I think families should have a scorecard. Okay, why?
Yeah.
Because whenever in life you get really serious about anything, whether you want to be an Olympian, whether you're trying to lose weight, whether you're trying to be an investor, anything, you're trying to be good at any particular job, what do? You start measuring things with precision. Okay. That's what experts do in every single industry. They start measuring with precision. So what do you want to measure in your family? Well, that's up to you. There's certain things you need to measure, in my opinion. So I created a family scorecard, okay, and a tool to help you build that scorecard. So one of the things that the examples I give are, I want to measure how many times a week we pray a family rosary, right? So we try to get it minimum of 4 nights a week. I didn't pick 7 because life gets complicated, okay?
Yeah.
Yes.
So 4, I want to measure how many times we get to confession. We're trying to get everybody in the house to confession once a month. We track it. So you go to confession, tick, I get a little tick mark on the scorecard. Less than a certain amount of financial penalties for doing your chores poorly. So like we make the kids pay when they crap out on their chores. And so we
Ooh.
track that. And so boom, tick. And so you come on, hand over the green stuff, guys. And so we track these things. And so it goes on our family scorecard, right? And so every family needs to measure certain things. So the examples in my book are pretty Catholic, but this book should be applied to anybody.
Right.
I love that you're the philosopher, entrepreneur, taking these principles, the deeper thoughts, connecting them to human reality. Because really it's coming from a human anthropology, an understanding of the family and of the human person. And I think there's something beautiful about being able to go to that place and say, how do we apply some of the best of good organizational management?
Right.
And say, there is no greater enterprise, there's no greater work that we're ever going to do than being a husband and wife and a mother and father. And how do we do our family excellently? How do we, again, recognizing that we're all messy, that there's life happens, that we're not looking for perfection. We're looking at moving forward though,
Right.
and being more effective and,
Right.
and passing on both the faith, the values, and forming the hearts and minds of our kids really well.
Yeah. Having visions and goals.
Definitely.
So just as we close out, any final thoughts or encouragement for our families? Because people look at us, and say, oh, how do you do it? And we talked about that in the beginning, but we're trying to become more intentional. We're trying to step out. Any final words of encouragement that helped you as you not just wrote the book, but really as you lived this out over the last number of years? What last encouragement or inspiration might you offer?
All right. So I guess I'll go with a practical thing. I'm not trying to really plug my business so much, but come to wellorderfamily.com, and we have on there a free family assessment test that I created.
Beautiful.
And we didn't
Awesome.
talk about all 6 parts of the system, okay? But on wellorderfamily.com, you take this assessment test. Takes 5. Everyone likes assessment tests; they're fun.
Yes.
And the idea of the test is it will show you which of these 6 parts you're strongest in and weakest in, and like how do you score in each of these? Okay. So if like discernment, like decision making and problem solving, that might be your weakest thing. Like you grovel in the throes of indecisiveness and can't, make decisions. If that's like your biggest weakness, the test will tell you that, and our emails and stuff will kind of start helping you kind of work through that. And so the stuff you start getting from me for free is in response to how you score, and I'll start helping you with your biggest
Beautiful.
weaknesses. So it's a practical way to just kind of jumpstart some of this. So really, the answer to your question of like, where does a family start? I would say it's really based on how you score on the assessment test.
Yeah.
That's
and
great.
Then, and then we'll tell you, and we'll start feeding you. That's the practical side. I think that the spiritual side, guys, and I am the pot calling the kettle black. Okay. But I think the reason I'm out there doing this stuff is because I'm trying to practice what I preach, and I really stink at it. I really do. But, we've all noticed, where it's like we will, by the way, on my phone, I should have showed it to you on my phone, talking about tech. I'm totally backtracking here. 9 o'clock, every 9 p.m., part of our digital policy is my death alarm goes off. It's literally, I totally should have just shown it to you right here. But it was vibrating, and it distracted me. I'm like, who's calling me? Oh, that's the death alarm. Because why? My teenagers, everyone must have all technology downstairs in the docking station by 9 p.m. or they are dead meat. It's the devil. So that's why it goes off every night at 9. It's a simple little tool to use tech to control tech. Okay.
Right.
Death alarm.
Yes.
Put it on your phones. But I'm sorry, total derailment there. Spiritual side. Let's get serious for a second. Have you ever noticed how we're more kind, more gentle, more charitable, more thoughtful for perfect strangers than we are those closest to us?
That's right.
That's me. It's ridiculous. I'm ashamed. So in terms of business, why is it that I care more about having a clear vision, communicating a clear vision, having good communication, resolving conflict, building up the people I work with, all of these things at work? I do all the right human activity. Why? Because money's on the line. I got to build this team. I got to impress this person. And I go home and I'm none of that.
Yeah.
And so this is why I focus so much on business tools for family life. Okay. I am not trying to turn your family into a business, but what I am trying to do, I'm telling you, most people are on their A game at work to some degree, at least to some degree, when they're on the phone with a customer, when they're dealing with their boss. They have to be. They're forced to be, or they're going to get fired. But we go home and those threats aren't there. I'm asking the people to spiritually consider the most important joint venture of your life is your marriage. That's
right.
the most important partnership you have. And if you would just treat your spouse like you treat your most important customer, or you treat your most important colleague, I'm telling you, your family life, your marriage will probably be way better. And then you would realize it's filled with sacramental grace. What the hell have I been doing all this time? There's so much more grace that comes in. Aquinas says grace builds on nature. So if you put the natural order of things into place in your family with good business management techniques and use good basic natural virtues to get certain things done, then the grace from the sacraments, from Holy Mother Church will spill on you like a tsunami, but only when nature is in its proper place.
Right.
And I think business is really good at the natural things. And that's where I want to help families figure out how to implement some of that into their family life.
Awesome.
Right.
Awesome. That is a perfect note to end on, because I think that's what we desire. And we don't realize this is where we need to bring our A game. This is where we need to show up in the biggest way.
Yeah. Yeah.
Connor, thank you so much for joining us.
Yes, I know we have to let you go, but we really appreciate your time and the time that you've taken to be with us and all of our neighbors and all of the people who are on the call here.
Well, before here, we realized we have so many mutual friends and so much in common. I commend you for this wonderful job you guys are doing, your beautiful family, your mission here, your apostolate. I'm impressed. I hope we can keep developing our own friendship. And I got to come back to my alma mater sometime and to Steubenville. When I do that, I'll hopefully.
Yes.
That'd be awesome.
Yes.
That would
Yes.
be awesome.
Please
I was
do.
really honored to be here with all of the guests on here. Thank you so much. I'm humbled and honored. Thank you. And after my wife finishes, dealing with all these babies, then you'll have us back, and she'll be on here instead of me, and you'll have a much more insightful guest from her.
Well, that's beautiful. And remind me again, the website again, wellorderedfamily.com.
wellorderedfamily.com. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All
Thanks,
right.
guys.
God bless you. God
Thank
bless
you,
You
Connor.
too. You too. All right. Bye-bye.
Okay, well, I hope you enjoyed that interview with Connor Gallagher, and we highly encourage you to look into getting his book, because there's a lot to unpack, a lot more that he didn't even get a chance to.
And he's
to
a lot of
discuss.
good challenges. What struck me is that when he talked about like the technology policy,
Yes.
that if you don't have a technology policy, or you don't think you do, you don't have one written down, you actually do have a policy. The policy is the kids do whatever they want.
That's right.
And that's the truth.
And I love that he talked about it. Said, where do we first start? It's like, well, it depends on where you're at with your kids.
Yeah.
And that was
Yeah.
a perfect way to approach it. It wasn't like just one size fits all. It really, which really resonates with me. Think about where you're at as a family.
Here, let me give you these 4 key takeaways that we came up with, and we'll put them in the notes below here. So first of all, we all operate with systems in the home, whether we realize it or not. The question is, are these systems effective? And then next, There are policies that families need to implement, but if you have to start with one, start with the tech policy, especially if you have teenagers. And we would absolutely agree with that. 100%. I would say if you don't have teenagers, if you just have little kids, I would start with your sleep policy, with the rhythm of sleep in the home, because that's so important. So it depends on how old your kids are. Okay. When you're trying to get control of your family life, start by asking the question, why? Why are we trying to live a certain way? And this is what we tell our families, that you have to know, what is our internal motivation for this? You must be on the same page with your spouse when it comes to those things. And then last, parents, you're the ones responsible. You have to lead the family. You need to be the architects of your family's life and habits. Nobody can do it for you. Even though he comes in, and he says this in the interview, even though he can come in and give ideas, at the end of the day, you're the one that have to decide what to do, and you're the one that's going to have to implement it.
And so maybe some questions for you to talk about as a spouse, between you and your spouse, is what are the systems in our home that right now that need some attention?
Where are the red flags?
Where are the red flags, right? Just where are they popping up right now? Because again, we all have those systems that are operating in our home right now. And consider, are we falling victim, or are we falling into the victim mentality, I should say, when it comes to running our house? Are we just caught up in kind of what we would define as the frantic lifestyle?
Right.
And how do we break that cycle so that we can get to a place? And we really think that, again, just even using the free stuff on the family board meeting that we have on our website, taking that pause, and instead of working in the family, as he said, but let's take some time to work on the family. Look at it from a bird's eye view. How is our family operating? Where are we falling short? And let's do more intentionally with our families than ever before.
And that's why you should come and register for our webinar on December 8th at 8:00. Come and register, and we will teach you how to implement these things, where to get started. That is very, very important. And please, please, please go visit our Give page.
MessyFamilyProject.org.
Yes, MessyFamilyProject.org/give. If you go and check that out, you'll be able to see our beautiful gifts, and every donation gets a gift, and every donation helps.
Amen. Anything else?
I think that we already prayed. Connor prayed for us. So we will hopefully see you guys at the webinar December 8th.
All right. Until next time, may the Lord bless you and keep you.